How many people drew the mad face? Just one?
Man, I'm sad, bro.
Everybody else went for the sad face. Let me get this stuff out of the way.
I'd rather people be
It's tough times, man.
All
Tough times, yeah.
right. Well, the hat of Monsieur L'accent is the same, right? This is called a circonflex. And I'm going to write it in both places, but. Okay. Do you remember
Is that
Any-
Yoan?
CIRCON? Flex E. Alright, does anybody remember me talking about any of the other accent marks and what they're called?
No.
Have I told you what they're actually called before? I don't know. Alright, let's go with the mouth because that one's the same on these. This is called a cedilla. Or I guess it's kind of the nose and the mouth. The eyes are called a trema. And here's where it's going to be different depending on which face you wrote because they're in opposite positions. So the one that points down is accent grave. The one that points up is aigu. If you, when I pass this other paper out here in just a second, I'll pull it up and I'll let you draw an arrow so that it helps you remember which one's which. But if you ever, well, not if, when you have these on a test, which will be, can't see, you have, next Tuesday, you're gonna have a vocab test on family vocab. You will have to spell stuff. The next week, you have a verb quiz. We haven't started it yet, but you'll have a verb quiz and a lanyap test. The next week, you'll have a test on everything. These will be on it on the 13th of April. So we're talking about these today, and probably, I don't know, we may on the 1st have an oral test. There'll be an oral part somewhere. So
Avoid.
I'll look at the calendar again, huh?
Avoid.
Pronouncing things. Probably on the 1st.
If you expect us to do all that fancy tongue rolls, I can't do that.
In fact, we'll just go ahead and say it's the 1st. Y'all are free.
Four. I was asking.
No, I mean, y'all were having it anyway. I just didn't put it on the board.
I can't do all that fancy.
Well,
So-
what you will do, and I'm going to show you, so don't panic. On the 13th, you'll have, like this worksheet that I'm not giving you yet, but you'll get by the end of class. You'll have questions about which accent mark is which. It will be matching, so you can match A, B, C, D, which accent mark like goes with what, which one they're used on vowels, which ones are used on consonants, that kind of stuff. But on the 1st, remember how you drew numbers out of a hat? I have this long list of words. I'm giving everybody the list of words, but you'll pick some of these words out of a hat and have to say them using all of the accent marks.
So like,
I'll give you a copy of this. We'll go over most of them in class, and then we'll do the worksheet. But that's what is coming. All right, so here are all of the accent marks on the sheet I just gave you. It's up on the board. So what happens, the accent AU is the one that points up. So somewhere, if it helps you, draw an arrow pointing up from left to right. That's which accent mark it is. The next one, accent grave, from left to right, points down. So points down to the grave, and that's a way to help you remember which one is which. Make it an arrow from left to right. If it's pointing down, that's accent grave because it points to the grave. The other one is AU, if it helps you remember which one is which, like for test time and pronunciation stuff. So the one that goes up is only ever used over an E. Like you've seen the word cafe a billion times, right? Or fiancé. I think we've talked about that one, with or without the E. The only time you'll ever see that accent mark that goes up, the AU, is over an E. For the accent grave, it is on an E possibly, like, remember in your vocab, mère, and père, and frère? That's that accent mark. It can also be over an A. So, this means at, to, or in. So like, I'm going to the cafe, I'm going to the apartment, whatever, I'm at the apartment. That's how you would say at or to. Or possibly a U. Most of the time it is like distinguishing between words, and I'll talk about some of that again in a minute. This is, the chart at the top is kind of like a like cheat sheet-ish summary of everything that's in the bottom. The circumflex, the house top, is what most people call it. It goes over any vowel that exists, A, E, I, O, or U. The trema is the two dots. It can go over an I, an E, or a U, and then the cedilla only goes on a C. So how do you say this word? Francais, right? So the C with the tail thing on it makes it sound like an S. That actually is supposed to look like that. I usually just do like a little comma thing under it, but it's the same thing. That's what a city is. Okay? Alright, so more detail stuff. If you look at this. It says accents may change how a word is pronounced. So like the letter E. How do you say this word for school? Yeah, l'école, right? So, huh?
I didn't think that was right because everything's so hard to say. But
There are rules for pronunciation. I'm knocking everything down. One of the rules is this accent aigu over an E. It makes the pronunciation like A. So, l'école. So, what is to study? You've had this before. Yeah, étudier, because that's an A too. But yes, this is A. All right, what about mean? Do you remember how to say mean? Good. All right. What is this? Andre, right? Okay. What
we
is?
say that, you say we get close, and then it's like,
Yeah, that's right. Okay. What is that?
I mean.
No, because me
Oh.
is this. The I and the E are in different places.
Aim.
This is just am because what's not here? Huh?
An accent mark.
There's not an accent mark. So this is am. Now what is that? Am may. Yeah, where you add the A sound at the end. So this, do you remember what this means? The verb. Remember what that is? To like or love. So this is like I like or he likes something. This is past tense, part of the past tense, where it's like ed on the end, loved or liked. We're not doing past tense yet, but it changes the pronunciation from am to am may. and sometimes it also changes the meaning, okay? So, where do accent aigus go? Over what letter? Accent aigu, which letter does it go over?
E.
Just an E. The next one goes over A, E, and U, okay? What sound does the accent aigu make? A. We're not on the next one yet, yeah.
My bad.
We're reviewing this one, okay?
See,
So,
I thought we were on the next
no,
one.
we're not moving on. Aigu makes an A sound, and it's only on the letter E, like in cafe, okay? Accent grave is the one that points down. It goes over A, E, or U, and that's the S sound. Like, what did we say this was? Just a minute ago. Mer. Yeah, that S sound there. So any word with this in it is an S sound. Not always, but a lot of the time if you see E-R-E, there's going to be an accent mark over that first E that goes this way. So, what about this? How do you know how to say this?
Because you told us how to say it.
I know, but what is it? Premier, right? Now how do you say that one? Instead of premier, premier, because this now makes an E sound instead of an A sound. This is a feminine way to say first. So if you're talking about like the first daughter born, you would have to make it feminine, just like you make other adjectives feminine. Alright? I'm going to write this word bigger.
Fine.
How would you say that? Austere. Yeah, the S sound. You got it. So when it's over an E, it makes an A sound up here, but an S sound down here. If it happens to be over an A or a U, it does absolutely nothing to the pronunciation. So this is ah. This is ah.
Then why is it there?
This is oo. This is oo. The reason for it being there is because it becomes a completely different word. So this is has, from the verb avoir that we're going to talk about sometime this week, before the end of the week. This, I told you a minute ago, is at, to, or in. So this is a verb versus a preposition here. This one means or, conjugation. No, not conjugation. What's that called? Conjunction word?
I guess.
Is that right, English? This means where. So the accent mark over an the accent grave over an A or a U changes the meaning of a word. So do you remember when y'all always ask about accent marks and do they count off?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they do, because if you put an accent or don't put an accent over an A, it makes it something else. So it matters a lot of the time what accent mark you put where. I will tell you, I'm counting off, for accent marks whenever it matters that much, okay? So that's just kind of some examples to show you. So, accent aigu goes over E's. It makes a long A sound. Accent grave goes over E's, A's, or U's. And it's either change of pronunciation for an S sound or a change in meaning, okay? Those are the eyebrows. They make your face either happy or sad or mean or whatever. Alright, so the housetop. And to a certain extent, the accent I get you, what does this mean? What does HUDL mean? Do you remember? Student, right? So, what happens that accent mark for the accent aigu, half of the time-ish means there used to be an S there. Before you have a printing press or a computer or a typewriter or whatever, how do you get copies of books or papers?
What? Repeat that?
Before you have like typewriters and computers or like printing things, how do you get a copy of a book or a manuscript?
Printing press?
Before that? Before the printing
You had
press?
to do it by hand.
You had to do it by hand, okay? If you're copying a book, what's the problem with copying a book by hand?
Handwriting.
What else?
Looks long.
It's long, right?
Oh.
So have you ever abbreviated things when you're taking notes or writing things down because you just really don't wanna write all that crap?
Yes.
Okay, so the people that used to copy books found a system of abbreviating things. Accent marks is one of those ways of abbreviation. So this accent mark, the accent aigu, on an E, sometimes meant that they took out an S in Latin. If you put an S in, sometimes you see a word that's closer to an English word, especially with a circumflex, because, look at your examples. L'hôpital, if you take out the accent mark and add an S, what word do you get?
Hospital.
Guess what hôpital means?
Hospital.
Hospital. Same thing with forêt, if you take out that accent mark and add an S, you get the meaning of forest. Now, it doesn't work everywhere, because like this one, embouche, which means a pitfall. In English, it doesn't work, but in Latin, it does, so,
It looks like ambush.
kind of, yeah. I guess you could look at it that way.
But then the word please.
The word please is completely different. Hotel is, have you ever heard of a hostel? Anybody heard of a hostel? What is a hostel?
Like similar to a hotel, but not like.
Yeah, it's cheap, like there may be, like if this is a hostel room, there could be like bunk beds where you only pay $10 or $15 a night and multiple people stay in the same room, you may not know them, but it's a cheap way to like travel across Europe. That's when lots of people like from the US have experiences with hostels that's traveling across Europe or like foreign countries. So that's the main point of a circumflex. It does absolutely nothing to the pronunciation. For the most part, you can use it to figure out what a word means. And you remember how we had like this versus this, if you like on the accent graph? It does the same thing. This means one thing. This means something different. So they use accent marks to distinguish between words. You don't need to know what either one of those mean right now. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? Are y'all all ready to go to sleep?
How do you say please?
See, who, play. See who, play. Literally, this S is C mixed with eel. You can't have the two I's. So you do that. So if it pleases you. They do their like direct and indirect objects backwards. They go in front of the verb or noun or whatever. We're definitely not talking about those. But s'il vous plaît is how you say it. Or you could say, what's the difference between these two? So why would there be two different ways to say please? Formal and informal. Which one's formal? Good. So this is formal, please. This is informal. Alright, two more. Okay, they're really easy. The trema goes over E's, I's, O's, and U's. So basically vowels except for A. How do you say this in English? No L, right? So you pronounce the O and the E. The reason you do that is because there should be these two dots over the E. All the trema does is make you pronounce both vowels that are side by side. So in French, if they saw this is a person's name, that's Noel. this becomes Noel. This is May. This is May. So you say this and you say this. That's all the trema does. It makes you pronounce two vowel sounds side by side. These are two of the, or this one in particular is the example that everybody knows. Yes. The only other one is the severe, right? It's the only one left. We've already talked about it. It goes under a C. It has to go under. It's the only one that goes on a consonant. And it's the only one that goes under a letter. But it makes the C go from a hard K sound to a soft C-S sound. And that's all it is. So, we have, what, 5 minutes left? I'm going to give you, not that. I'm going to give you this. I'll tell you what. We'll be done. I'll let you have 5 minutes. That way you don't have to do anything for homework. That work? Don't forget all the accent marks though over